A quick side note before we actually start this episode, there are a few times where the audio's a bit weird. It ended up getting a little messed up during recording and I didn't notice until editing. So if there's points where it sounds like it gets cut off weirdly or the conversation doesn't flow as naturally as it does, it's because of that. And there's a few moments where I kind of sound sped up or things seem like they piece together a bit strangely because of this. So I apologize for that, but let's get into the episode. Welcome, everyone, to the RPG Goblin, a TTRPG podcast that makes learning these games fun and easy for you, because these are amazing games, and I want more people to know about them and, like, how cool they are. I am your host, Willow. I am the resident goblin and the one who asks all the questions, and I'm kind of obsessed with TTRPGs to the point that I just can't stop talking about them, so podcast. In this episode, we are going to be talking about a new game coming to Kickstarter, and it is called SAGAS, and I'm really excited because it's a genre generic game, and those are always really fun for me, especially like games like Fate and stuff like that, so I can't wait to learn about this game. And to talk about it, we have on the creator, Dennis. Dennis, if you'd like to introduce yourself and basically tell everyone who you are, where they can find you, and all of that cool stuff, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I am Dennis. Around the internet, I'm known as OKSDM. I run the OKSDM YouTube channel where I make mistakes running games so you don't have to. My latest project thank you. My latest project has been, as already has been mentioned, is SAGAS. And SAGAS is an acronym for Setting and Genre Agnostic System. I've been working on it for a surprisingly short amount of time, as I've come to learn. Originally, we'll get into the history of it, but it is the first like full standalone game that I've designed, and it has just gone off like a rocket, and I could not be happier. It is planned to come to Kickstarter in January.
January, woo! Oh man, that feels so far away, even though I know it's not.
No, it doesn't. It's like tomorrow, man.
It's basically right around the corner.
It is. I'm so nervous.
Well, I'm sure it'll be great, especially saying that, like, the fact that it's in kicking off, that's really exciting, especially for like kind of your first big game. And I would like to kind of start off with like, what gave you the idea to create SAGAS?
So SAGAS is part of something that has been referred to in the space as the OGL boom. And just from the name, I'm sure you can guess what it is. It's like once the OGL debacle in January of 2023 happened, everybody started saying, oh, look at all these other really cool games. And everybody else that wasn't saying that was saying, I'm going to design my own because I think I can do better. Or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. I'm not pretending that I can one-up Wizards of the Coast. I'm just one dude that's learning as he goes. But it has been an absolute blast putting this thing together. And it started off as like what if I designed my own game? And from that moment, I realized I just could not stop thinking about it. And I had like 18 different ideas in the next 2 days. And I'm like, okay, I got to start putting these on paper.
Get down before it leaves your head.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
No, that's amazing. And I mean, that's actually funny that you said like the OGL boom, because like, I've never heard anyone say that, but that definitely very much happened within the space. What I've seen a lot of is when that happened with the OGL, a lot of people went for like kind of fantasy games. And what you seem to have is, a genre neutral game, similar to like Fate, Cypher, games like that. Why did you go for this approach versus doing like a direct setting or genre?
Well, I started to look around other games to play, and I realized I didn't want to have to learn a new set of rules every single time I wanted to play in a different world or a different kind of genre. And some of those rule books out there for very specific genres are super beefy, and just I got intimidated, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look for something else. And before I found all of those universal games that can be played in pretty much anything, I started designing my own. And you can't help but be compared to those mainstays that you mentioned, Fate, Cypher, GURPS, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the first things I did with Sagas is I made it different enough from those systems that it merits its own creation. I don't want to create like a clone of something that already exists, you know?
No, I've been going over the playtest that you have of it, and I can very much tell that it is different from the other games that are kind of that generic system. And I'm very, very excited about it, especially with like the dice system that you're using for this game, with like kind of everything's like a D10, right? And like it can like go up and down and all of that.
Yeah, that was one of the first big deviations from most of the games people have played that I put into this. So essentially, I looked at what you do to make a check because I wanted to stick around with like what I felt was familiar, and almost my entire background is in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. I've dabbled in other things, but almost all 5e is what I've done so far. So I wanted to use that as a basis, as like a launching pad, and find what I feel familiar with and make changes from there. And I realized one of the things that I wanted to do with this is make it rules light and make combat faster, because that's one of the things that me and a lot of others get annoyed with 5th edition.
Yes, very much so.
So I had this idea like early on. I tried to get rid of all the math that you needed to do. And it took me a while to realize, but it's almost impossible to get rid of math if you're still using dice. And I really wanted to use dice because I'm a dice goblin. I have like, I don't know, 100+ sets of dice at this point.
Ooh, very fun. I am a fellow dice goblin, and that makes me very happy.
Yes. So what I did to change the main like basic idea of you try to do something difficult, you roll a d20 and you add stuff to it, and then you figure out whether you succeeded or failed. What I changed was I didn't want it to necessarily be d20s, and I looked at that and I tried to figure out what other variables I could play with, and I came up with a couple answers. There's I wanted to get rid of the modifiers. I wanted to get rid of the math, right? I wanted you to be able to roll dice and immediately tell whether you succeeded or failed without the like dead air of adding 14 to 12. Yes, which not everybody can do in an instant in their head. Yeah. So the variable I landed on was changing the size of the die you roll and changing the number of dice you get to roll. So it's sort of like damage in D&D, but you usually will roll one die. And I started playing around with like, what is the probability if you roll a D12 versus a D10 versus an 8 versus 6. And I landed on having it be a roll low system, so you can still easily crit no matter what. If you roll a 1, you do extra damage. It's simple as that.
Yeah, I love roll under systems or roll low systems. I just think they're really, really fun.
And this, I'd honestly, I don't think I've actually played a roll under system before I started designing this, but I can really, really see the appeal now that I've got my claws into it.
There's just something appealing about rolling a 1 and succeeding. It just
Yeah, it is. And I like the idea that you can still roll a 1. You can still roll the absolute perfect success no matter what die you're rolling. Even if you have to roll the biggest die in the game, you have all the drawbacks, you can still roll a 1.
Absolutely. No, I like that a lot. And so the selection of dice are a D6 through D12, right?
That's correct. I didn't want to go with D20 because D12 to D20 is just like too big of a jump probability wise. And the same reasoning for a D6 and a D4. Like the difference is from, what would it be? 17%, I think, to 25% chance of rolling a 1 is an enormous gap. And so I just did away with the D4s entirely. And I'm right now I'm considering like putting them in for, like super powered moves or really like extra legendary equipment and stuff like that. But right now I'm still shying away from it just because of that probability gap.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to shy away from it for that. And like almost what I think would be cool is if you did add in the D4 for like maybe that being an alternate rule. Like, oh, if you want to
Mm,
have these like overpowered type abilities or things, you can have the option of adding in the D4 to the game, which would actually be kind of cool.
yeah, I think it would be. Like I said, it's still the free version that is available right now is version 0.7. And it is probably going to only evolve slightly from here before we start playing. Like, I'm going to send a finished version of the rules up to out to a bunch of sponsored channels. Some of the bigger names that I can't talk about yet will be playing Sagas, and I'm super excited to see what all these channels that I've been watching for forever get to do with my system. It's going to be really fun to watch.
Watching all along, playing my game, what do they think and how do they use it? But even just people in general, like actually getting to use
Mm-hmm.
this thing that you've been building up for so long. Which actually, how long have you been creating sagas for?
It's been pretty much nonstop since I first conceived of it during the OGL debacle in
Mhm.
January. So as far as game design goes, not that long. But I think that's okay. I think I've put the time required into it. I spent 2 months doing pretty much nothing but live play tests.
Mhm.
And I that doesn't include the ones that I've been doing off screen, both on my own and with private groups.
Mhm.
I think I've done like as far as actual games, I think maybe like 50, 40 or 50,
Oh, that's really good.
but since January.
Mhm.
So it has been like pedal to the metal the whole time, but as far as like number of months, not that long.
Yeah, and I know like as over time as you add in new mechanics, like having that constant playtesting is really, really good.
It's been super helpful.
Yeah, and how much do you like through the playtesting so far from like kind of the initial, playtest draft of this game, how much has it changed over time?
Oh, so much. I still have like the oldest draft save of
Mhm.
version 0.1, and it is almost unrecognizable.
Oh, that's
The main
crazy.
mechanic has changed so many times during early stages as I played around with whether I want to change the number of d20s you get to roll or the number of d12s you get to roll. Maybe
Mhm.
the d12 will be the main die of the system, and it's just so much has evolved since then. Um, and that's only looking at the actual main mechanic of making checks.
Mhm.
That doesn't include, the movement and the map measurements and the character building and the ways that you spend effort. The effort is probably my favorite thing, and I'm sure we're going to dive into it
Oh yeah,
here.
for sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
but there's been a countless number of changes.
Mhm.
Even if you go on Drive Through RPG, you can see the changes that got made between version 0.52 and version 0.7,
Mhm.
and it is a long list. And there are ones in there that just say many minor changes to insert thing here.
Of course. No, I love that though. Like it's changing all the time. And I think that's the coolest thing with like developing a game. Like I've never dabbled in developing a game before, but I think that would be what I would have the most fun with is like, okay, how is it changing over time? How is it
Hmm.
evolving? And that's just so cool to hear. I love it. And so how close do you think right now that you are to the final version of the game? You're releasing in January. That's still, even though it's like right around the corner, it's still a few
Hmm.
months away. Is there going to be additional play testing and changes to the rules, you think?
Um, so one thing I'm scared of, just like any artist, is I feel like it's never going to be perfect.
Hmm.
No matter how much work I pour into it, like even after the release, I know there's going to be things like, I should have fixed that before releasing it.
Hmm.
Um, I'm sure that's going to happen many, many times. So I'm going to make it the best I possibly can how I am right now. Maybe I'll come back to it one day and like make other modifications and release a second version if it does like super well.
Yeah, there
But
can always be
right
new
now,
additions.
yes, yeah, but that's long. That's like years and years down the road. Right now, I think it is the basic rules, like the first 10 or so pages of, how combat works, the different actions you can take, how movement is measured, how checks are resolved when you try to do something difficult. That's pretty solid. We've been playing with those rules for a long time now as far as the lifespan of the game goes. And I think we've ironed it out pretty well. There aren't many wrinkles left. Like I'll find one every now and then, but since version 0.7 got released, I haven't seen. I think I've maybe changed one thing in the first 10 pages. And not including like reorganizing the document to make it easier to read and look better.
Of course.
But yeah, I think
fun.
the basic rules are pretty solid. But the features that you get to tag onto your character, basically your traits or racial features, the struggles that your character has, the powers that they get to take, those are going to change because even with the amount of playtesting we've done, there is a lot in there that has not yet been touched. And it's just really it's just theory crafting for a lot of them. There's a couple that get chosen every single time. Like I don't think I've played a game where someone didn't take the struggle anarchist or the struggle. What's the other one that's really, really popular? Impulsive theft. That one gets chosen so often.
Oh, what a fun mix. I love that. And I mean, I think that's always going to be the trickiest part is like when you are playtesting, unless you're like building up the characters, if you just have really cool like abilities that like, it's like, hey, you can pick from any of these. And there's just a few really cool ones. It's hard to test everything when it's like, people are like, I want to do this.
Yeah. It is.
I love that though. I think that's really fun. And I think the best way as well to even get started about talking about this game more is, what do you think is the most important place to start off with to explain how Sagas works?
It depends. If you're coming from a place of no TTRPG experience, then I would start with, resolving checks. Your character does something difficult. You roll dice. The size of the die depends on what sort of things you chose in character creation. And the game master will set a difficulty. And if you roll at or below that difficulty, you succeed. If not, then you fail. That is the most basic, and I skipped like 5 things in there, but that is the bread and butter of not just this one, but a lot of TTRPGs out there.
Oh yeah.
If you're coming from a place of like you've played, your fair share of games, then I would probably point you to what makes Sagas. I think the thing that makes it the most different would be effort. So a lot of systems have, spell slots or mana or stamina or power points or something like that to track how much energy that you are spending on your abilities. Sagas takes all of those and combines them into effort. There are a lot of different abilities that can use it. Most of the spells or powers that you take they use effort to be cast or used. And that is not the only thing that you can do with effort, because obviously not everybody is going to be a magical powerhouse. And in order to be a setting and genre agnostic system, it might just be set in this world. So there's no mana, like there's no stamina. Well, there would be stamina, and there are things that you can use effort for on there, like parry and counter, for example. You can, if someone misses you, you can spend 1 effort to attack them back immediately.
Oh yeah, of course. Which I always like parrying in games, so I like that that's in there.
Yeah, no, it's we tried our best to. Another gripe people have with 5th edition is marshals versus casters and balancing and stuff. So we tried to make them pretty equal as far as power level goes, so people don't feel like they're being left in the dirt.
And I mean, even though, like, because I know in this game, in Sagas here, you have like abilities that you can choose from the actual book, but you can even make your own. So it's kind of difficult to, like, it's interesting the way of like how it balances itself out, because you don't know what people are going to choose, and you don't know like what even custom like traits and features and stuff like that they can even make. I like that you are putting in the thought of like, how can this resource be used among many different types of characters.
And there are, one thing that we needed is there needs to be ways to always, like, even if you don't take the necessary talents and powers when you level up and create your character, there should still be ways that you can use this resource, because it's like a main like part of the game. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And I think this is where, as a game designer, I was able to mold the game into exactly what I wanted. The first way is you can spend 3 effort to gain 1 die on any check you make. And if you roll multiple dice, you just take the lowest one, sort of like advantage in D&D.
Oh, yeah.
So if you can spend 3 effort to gain 1 die on any of your checks. But if you can also help an ally, and that only costs 2 effort. So it is more efficient to assist your allies in combat or out of combat than it is to help yourself. I wanted to cultivate this sort of... Yeah, I really wanted to cultivate this sort of camaraderie and teamwork vibe that is missing, I think, from a lot of player groups. And one of the best parts of all of my favorite games.
Yeah, no, some of my favorite moments and some of my favorite mechanics in games are always ones that players can actually like interact with each other in the game mechanically and like give each other, advantages. Like, I love that so much more than you just get a bonus to damage. Like, oh, because you did this attack, you can do an extra damage. And that's not like it's a bad thing. Just the extra effort to add in mechanic, like to help like create teamwork, I think is really, really fun. So when I saw that, when I was reading through Sagas, that made me really excited.
And I think the next one of combo is pretty much the same thing as help. You spend 2 effort, but instead of adding a die to your ally's check, you add damage. And I think that is perfect for like anime combo team attack versus the final boss, where everything can like stack. So if there's 5, you have a 5-person party, right? And 4 people combo with the one that's about to hit the boss, then there's going to be so much damage done.
It's so cool. Like just the visual of that, like everyone working together to do this one attack, like anime.
Yes. I think that's one of the supplements that I'm going to be considering, or I think maybe like a stretch goal in the Kickstarter is insert optional rules specific to anime. So you can play more and more like how those stories are told. Like, you don't necessarily have to die when you die. You can come back next episode in some fiery flame fashion. Be the Deus Ex Machina that the party needs. Something like that.
Always required. I love that. And I even love the idea that you are considering, as stretch goals, adding in those optional rules this way. Because I think Fate and Cypher, I know for sure. I've never played GURPS. I've never looked at GURPS. No one yell at me.
I don't think I want to.
I don't know if I want to either. There's like a million books, and it stresses me out. But in Cypher and Fate, I know that they have a similar thing of like, oh, here's how to play a superhero game. And I like that you're also adding it in. You know, I hate to compare, but you know, with those being kind of the best references for this type of game, seeing you do that, because I think that's valuable for even any type of game. Here's how you do this, I think is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with game design, you have to take ideas and just steal from the best. And then one of the quotes I heard, I think it was actually my younger sibling that told me this, and they said that in order to make something new, you have to steal someone else's work and then screw it up and then screw it up and then screw it up and then screw it up, and boom, you have something original.
Perfect. Oh man, that's good actually. Because it's so true. Like it
is.
It's the whole thing, even with like reinventing the wheel. Like there's a million different ways you could figure out how to do like damage in TTRPGs, but there are ways that are already really genius that you can just take from and adapt in your own ways. You know, make it your own thing just by using that as a base. Some of my favorite games do that exact same thing, and it's like, oh, it's so cool. I recognize that mechanic. No, I love that a lot. And actually, it makes me curious. I know that you mentioned referencing stuff that you liked in 5th edition and being able to use that as a point of reference, since that's been a majority of what you've played or that you've had experience in. Are there any other games or systems, or even, I guess, like could be even board games that you've taken inspiration for them, sagas?
Pretty much a little bit from everything that I've played, which albeit it's a pretty short list. But I think the other big one is the idea behind effort comes from Easy D6 by Scotty DM and Runehammer Games. They have something in there called Karma, which is basically you can make your rolls better by failing more. So every time you fail, you generate these karma points, and you can use those to add and make your future rolls better. And I thought that was just an excellent balancing mechanic, because I have players at my table all the time that just roll terrible all night. They just don't roll above a 5, you know? So I straight up just stole that. The main way you regain effort is every time you fail a check, you get 1 effort point. And it doesn't matter like what kind of check it is. Even if a monster attacks you, you have to make an avoid check to get away from it. Even if you fail that check and you take that damage, you still get 1 effort point back.
I love that. And it makes failing feel less sucky. Like, even though, you're still failing and you take the consequence and all of that, being rewarded in some way just feels good. Like, okay, you know, I love that in Power by the Apocalypse games. If you fail, you gain experience so that you can level up later in the game. You know, in this game, when you fail, you get the effort and you can actually use that towards roles in the future or to help your friends out. I love it.
Power by the Apocalypse was another little bit, like, I've never actually played it myself, but I've seen plenty of, you know, Monster of the Week games. So that was another place that I stole this from. Yeah, it's a good system. I need to play it at some point. Add it to the growing list of things I'll never touch.
Oh, same, of course. Like, I have way too many Powered by the Apocalypse games on my shelf, and it's like, I've only played, actually 2. Oh, yay, I'm at 2 instead of only 1 for, like, 7. And Monster of the Week is my favorite. Like, anytime that I think of it, and anytime that people ask, like, oh, you know, what Powered by the Apocalypse game? Monster of the Week. Like, just straight up. Even if you don't like that trope.
I'm going to be totally honest with you. Really, I don't know any others. Like, Monster of the Week is, like, the one that I know is Powered by the Apocalypse.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, Monster of the Week, I think, is the most popular. There's also, of course, the, OG Apocalypse World, you know, where this all came from. Glitter Hearts, Masks a New Generation, which is about playing, like, teenage superheroes. There's let me look back at my shelf for a moment. Thirsty Sword Lesbians. Apocalypse Keys.
Okay.
Root. Like, there's a lot
Okay,
of
yeah,
them.
I've heard all of these titles. I just didn't know that they were running on the same engine.
Yeah, and that's that's at least the cool thing that I find, a little off topic, obviously, right now. The cool thing that I find
A
about
little bit.
Powered by the Apocalypse is the fact that a lot of them, use the same base, same system, same engine, all of that. And they just do wildly different things. Like Apocalypse reminds me of, if Powered by the Apocalypse, if Brindlewood Bay had a baby and made a really amazing, emotionally tense RPG. And like Monster of the Week does its own things. With even, I was talking about this recently, of having different types of like NPCs and monsters, and being able to like use that to dictate how they, or not dictate, but to reference of how they would act and things like that. So it's such an interesting system because the base is like always consistent, 2d6 and the different tiers of success and failure. And then so many people make it their own, and it's amazing. That's my little rant of Powered by the Apocalypse.
No, it's we can segue because I'm planning on doing the same thing essentially with Sagas. So this is a relatively recent update to the grand scheme of the plan. But I'm going to be releasing a couple of supplements, so 5 additional like pamphlets to go with the game. They are 3 of them are going to be settings, and 2 of them are going to be adventures. And they'll just be like, additional content that you can like, because one of the problems with the game I find is, or with any universal system, is people look at it and they get choice paralysis. Like I don't know what I want to run. The options are limitless and I can't pick. So I wanted to have something like of like actual choices. Like I wanted to provide a setting just in case you are that kind of person.
I love that,
because I want this to be as accessible as possible.
I think that's great, and that's definitely the biggest thing with. I'll use Fate because that's been the one I've read the most of and I know the most of. It is genuinely terrifying though to kind of go in and be like, all right, what am I gonna run? What world? And even from a character standpoint too, because in Fate they don't have a lot of like pre-written aspects or stuff that you can choose for your character versus creating it, because I'm pretty sure it's pure creation. It is on your plate to create these aspects for your character. And that's what I also found really neat about when I was reading through Sagas, is that you had a bunch that are already pre-made, and then the option that you can make your own, so that it kind of it puts some what's the word for it? It puts options that are just out there already. And the players don't have to feel like, oh man, I don't know how I can create a character that has 3 different abilities that I have to create. No, you can just pick from a list.
Yes. No, I didn't want to like say, we started with that at one point. I'm not going to lie. Most of these creation for these talents, traits, struggles, equipment, stuff like that, has just been me following those rules exactly. I made a template of how to create these different things, and I'm just using that same template to create some options to pick from.
I love that. And it also makes it a bit more accessible to new players as well when to a generic system, because those can be very intimidating to start with. That's why even I actually, when it comes to thinking of a system to introduce people to, I always go to Powered by the Apocalypse, because it goes by those tropes. It's pretty simple to understand. A generic system is like almost on the complete other side. Like, even though it could be easy to pick up, if you are introducing someone to a game and say, hey, you can play anyone or anything you want, terrifying. So I love those options so much. Are you planning at all? I'm just curious, since I've seen quite a few games do this, where they have like pre-generated characters within the game for people to run it as like, with a new group, just being able to introduce them to the game without having to struggle with creating a character at first?
Oh, yeah. So if you scroll down to the last 2 pages, there are 3 wonderful, wonderful pieces of art on the cover, done by Rook Zero. He's my artist. He's been wonderful to work with. But what
I love
he
it.
made all three of these pieces, and then we worked together to smash them into the cover. But I took those three original pieces and I made them into actual characters. And
Mhm.
one thing that a lot of people in their reviews of the system have said is they really enjoy that all three of these pre-generated characters have a leveling tree with them.
Yeah, I
Like,
see
so you
that.
don't have to. Every single game that I've played, which again wasn't a lot, but every single one that I've seen has, they come with those pre-generated characters, which is super helpful and useful, but they don't help you level up those
Mhm.
characters. And with this, you could jump in with any of these three characters at whatever level you want, and you will have exactly what you need already pre-built.
Ooh.
You don't have to go through and make any decisions. Super, super helpful and easy if it's your first time playing. You don't
Mhm.
necessarily want to be, weak and about to die at all times.
Yeah, of course. And like it does, I guess, also like set that example of how, a character is made so that people can, reference it even if they don't end up using the characters. And I guess the
Hmm.
idea in a lot of games is when they do make a pre-generated character, I guess the assumption is by the time you level up, you are into the game enough to like know how to do it or like want to take that character in their own direction and stuff like that, which I think is fine. But this offers both that, hey, here's we can kind of handhold and walk through this level up process, or you could even go in
Hmm.
your own direction if you would like to and make that character your own. So having those different choices,
Yeah.
even with that, I think is really, really good.
And I think it's nice to have, but not totally necessary, especially
Mhm.
for sagas, because the level up process for this game is exceedingly simple. So I remember we were playing there's a live stream over on Mistress Winter's Court channel on Twitch and YouTube. And we were playing a Horizon Zero Dawn game. It
Oh,
was
that
really,
sounds
really cool.
fun.
It's set right after the main siege of Meridian.
Ooh.
And yeah, so it was really fun. I got to play someone from the Shadow Karja slash Eclipse, maybe. And he was dealing with being from the losing side and trying to figure out where his life was going to go from there. It was really, really cool.
That's so
But
cool.
the one of the players in the middle of the game realized, wait, we're not at level 1. We're supposed to be at level 3 or 4 right now. Oh, okay. We'll just finish this session. And in the middle of the game, during his downtime, while the camera was like on other players, he completed his level up. Like
Oh,
it was like within 10 minutes, he had leveled from 1 to 4.
I love that so much. Leveling up,
Yeah, but it takes
it's
a while.
yeah, it takes a while because it's like, okay, now you can look at all of the feats. It's like I spend like
Mm.
30 minutes just looking at feats and I'm like, why can't I just why can't it be just simple? I am so done. Even though like I love playing my character, there is just something about leveling up and crunchier systems at points where it's like if you do it too much, I want to die.
Yeah, you have to go through and okay, I'm increasing this stat to this
Mhm.
number, so this skill, this skill, this skill, and this skill, and this skill all go up by one. Okay, let's go erase those 7 numbers and
Mm.
change them, and it's just a hassle. But in sagas, the only real time you have to take when you're leveling up is choosing what
Mhm.
to spend your new leveling points in.
Which I guess we can get a little bit into that specifically how how do the characters get like abilities and things that they can do, like how does the character creation work since those are kind of tied in together.
Yeah, so you can't level up without a character, so I think we'll
it's,
start there.
it's a good thing to
So
have.
yeah, it's helpful in that endeavor. So character creation, you start off with 2 health.
Hey everyone, it is time for the midpoint break. I hope that you are enjoying this episode so far. A quick reminder that the RPG Goblin is trying to get 1,000 listens within the month of November. So generally, I would always ask for, hey, leave a review if you're enjoying the episode, but also make sure to listen to other episodes of the RPG Goblin, share it with your friends, leave a review, and just be generally awesome to help us reach the 1,000 listen goal so that we can have a live TTRPG party. Woo! But for this episode, I just want to say that thank you for bearing with any of the audio issues. I know that they were probably a bit obnoxious. I know that they were very annoying to try and edit out. And I tried to make it all sound as natural as possible, but sometimes you don't notice that something went wrong during recording until afterwards. So I do apologize for that, but thank you so much for sticking around. Make sure to check out SAGAS. Again, the link will be in the description of this episode because this is a very, very cool game, and I'm really excited for it to come out on Kickstarter in January, which is only a few months away. Insane. But today we are going to have a promo from our good friends over at 5GMs in a Trench Coat. Now, if you don't know who 5GMs in a Trench Coat is, then you are seriously missing out because this is an amazing group, probably one of my favorite play groups that I have listened to, and currently they are on their first season of their actual play show where they decide to play a new system every season, and their first system and their first season is a Fate game where they play as dragon riders. It's really, really good, and so I can't recommend it enough, and let's get to the promo to see what it's all about so that you can go check out 5GMs in a Trench Coat and give them all the love.
Hello everyone and welcome to 5GMs in a Trench Coat.
Excuse me?
Yeah?
What's that?
You want to know what 5GMs in a Trench Coat is? Let us tell you.
It's the adhesive that keeps the fragile pieces of my sanity together.
Well, okay, Jesse, what it actually is a narrative-driven TTRPG actual play where 5 friends take turns weaving stories through the tabletop game of their choice.
Of their choice.
Each season?
Each season.
That's pretty cool.
I disagree.
Oh.
I feel it's the adhesive.
So, like, you guys aren't all in a trench coat?
No, we're definitely in a trench coat.
How does that work?
Get her.
Before I'm caught, you can check out 5GMs in a Trench Coat just about anywhere you get your podcasts, or you can check out our website at 5GMsinatrenchcoat.com. Oh my god, they really are all in a trench coat.
How do the characters get, like, abilities and things that they can do? Like, how does the character creation work, since those are kind of tied in together?
Yeah, so you can't level up without a character, so I think we'll start there.
It's a good thing to have.
yeah, it's helpful in that endeavor. So, character creation. You start off with 2 health and 2 effort, and that might seem super, super low, especially for only having 2 health at level 1, but pretty much every single attack in Sagas does 1, sometimes 2 health points of damage. So 2 health is like 1 to 2 hits away from death, which is about the same as any level 1 character builds that I've seen in other systems.
It's just smaller numbers, which I think works just fine. Also makes math feel less math.
Exactly. You just have to count. It's so easy. You don't have to add and subtract. So you got your health and your effort.
When you have to add.
Right. Don't ask me to divide. If you're divide, I'm closing that book.
I'm out of here.
You get your 2 health, your 2 effort. You get to choose 2 traits, and you get to choose these from a list, or like we said, you can make your own, especially if you're familiar with the ones you already have and have a specific idea in mind. They're all rules for how to make that a reality inside the game and not be super broken. And traits are basically like usually physical characteristics about your character that can't be changed. So these are sort of like racial features in D&D. You know, you've got a prehensile tail that can grab things. You've got wings. You are a plant or a Kryptonian, and you have photosynthesis. You draw an energy and heal from the sun.
I love that.
There's a lot of different and some pretty wild things in there. If you choose 2 traits, you also have to choose 2 struggles. And this is where people get really, really into their characters, is when they have to find out what their character's flaws are or what they
Yes.
struggle with in life.
The best
and
thing
they
about
can
these
vary.
generic games, I think, is doing the flaws and the struggles. So good.
Yeah, it's really fun to like explore who is this character going to be in by defining what they can't do well, which feels counterintuitive on the surface, but if you understand how like characters in stories work and what makes them compelling, struggles are super important. So a lot of people dive into this really hard. And struggles can be anything from, physical drawbacks like having bad sight or not being able to taste anything, to personality traits like the ones we said earlier, arrogant, anarchist, impulsive theft. There's a lot in there to choose from, and there are a couple that are very, very popular. But there's I think a total of like 20 to 30 each of traits and struggles. And then still the option to create your own.
Which is a
then
really
you get
good
into the
variety.
Yeah, no, we find it's a good number, especially to start with in a core rulebook.
Absolutely.
Then you get into the really fun part of choosing your talents and powers. These, instead of being static things that just are true about you and they don't change, these are the things that grow with your character as your character grows. Things that you can pour more energy into when you level up and make these skills better. These will be your things like control fire, which could be fire spells, or say you're in a cyberpunk setting, it's you have flamethrowers for arms. So cool. There's one of those for each element. There's some summoning things. There's summon goblin, summon dragon, raise monster, so like a necromancy kind of thing, or it's been flavored as putting nanites into your slain enemies and reanimating them under your control.
I love that.
So those,
really cool.
Those are the powers. Yeah, I really liked that when a player pulled that on me. I'm like, haha, that's so creative and amazing. Those are your powers, but there's also talents, and the difference between them, the only difference between powers and talents, is that talents exist in our world, and powers usually do not. Like you're not going to find a fire mage who lives as your next door neighbor. In pretty much all cases. I don't. If he's my next door neighbor, I don't want him to burn down the apartment building.
I mean, I guess that's fair. So, if it's an evil wizard, maybe there would be some problems.
So talents will be things like weapon training. That's the biggest one in talents, is like you get to roll smaller dice, which is better, on when you swing your sword or crack your whip, etc. Then there's other stuff that is out of combat abilities, like being like investigator or journalistic instinct, which helps you find people, like specific people, and get information out of them. There are things like being able to disarm your opponent. There is bodybuilder, which gives you an advantage to either look strong or actually be strong and move something heavy. I love that. There's a distinction there. Those are two different things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You can look super ripped, but when it comes to moving that boulder, it's just bigger than you are.
Exactly. You're just not strong in that way, and that's okay. But I do love like how you are explaining like some of the mechanical values to these, abilities as well, or to these talents, because I love that it's like both in and out of combat too, because that's always something I felt. What if I just want to be able to do something cool out of combat? What if I want to be really good at negotiating when it comes to selling something? What if I want these different things, and having those as actual options people can pick? Love it.
Yeah, and that was a necessity going into this, is having those options, because you can't you can't call it a setting and genre agnostic game if you can't play a rom-com with it, with no magic,
Exactly.
no combat. We actually did that once in a private game, and it was freaking wild. It was so much fun.
That sounds really, really fun. Or like a Victorian drama.
Exactly. And you can do these things with sagas. And I don't know if I've said this, but every single genre, setting, world we've tried to run inside this game using this system, every single time we are surprised with how well it fits together. I think my best example of this is we played Pokemon in the post-apocalypse, in like a nuclear winter, where the humans have destroyed everything, and all the humans are dead. All of the Pokemon that they had on them at the time are dead, and now the box storage system is finally failing, and these Pokemon that were boxed forever are emerging out to see this broken world, and what has been set up since then. And you can watch that on my YouTube channel. It's so cool.
I need to see the snap. That sounds genuinely insane, but in the coolest way possible.
It was, I'm not gonna lie, it was one of the ones that I was looking forward to the most, and like not necessarily focusing on when designing the game, but excited to try out once we got around to it. And boy, the players did not disappoint.
Oh, that's so cool. And that's what it's also like, because people can make the arguments of any system can be set in any setting or genre. You can change any system for it. And like that can be true. But I think what makes these system agnostic, or these genre and, setting agnostic systems the best, is the fact that like the character creation itself, the characters and the tools that it gives the GMs are built for exactly that. You aren't limited on how to change these mechanics in a way that works for you. Instead, it's already there in front of you, and it already gives you tools on how to do it, versus trying to figure out how to play a rom-com in D&D 5e. Like, it can work.
I don't want to try to figure that out. But you'd have to throw out like most of the book. Like 90% of it would be useless.
Exactly. Like when so many abilities revolve around combat, it's like, okay, so we're not gonna engage with pretty much all of the game, and we're just gonna roleplay. Like, that's fine.
Yep.
But like, if you
we could do that just sitting around a table for fun.
Exactly. We can just improv roleplay together, and that's fine. If we want to do that, cool. And like, I feel like if someone has the drive to make D&D 5e work as a dating sim or rom-com or whatever, like, more power to you. But a lot of people,
it's probably been done somewhere already.
For sure.
There's a lot of supplements for D&D.
I saw one the other day that was like waifu like supplement. I'm like, I
think I've seen that too. Yeah.
But like, good on you for wanting to change and like knowing the rules enough to be able to do that. But a lot of people, including me, I don't want to have to do that anytime I just want to play a different setting or a really cool idea that is outside of kill fantasy monsters.
And that is the basis of what I created Sagas to be. So it's perfect.
Yes, it is. I love it so much. It's really, really cool. And so with the character creation, we got a little off topic there. It's fine.
Yes. Character creation now, how level up works. So I actually know there's a couple more pieces of character creation. There is optionally, you can choose to have, instead of 2 traits and 2 struggles, you can get 3 traits and 3 struggles, which is fun. But the other big thing that I glossed over is equipment. You just get 2 pieces of non-advanced equipment. So you can go through and pick out. Well, advanced is basically anything that is too broken to have at level 1. So, your master sword, your lightsaber, your world-ending ruby, stuff like that.
I want a world-ending ruby. That would be fun.
Well, the closest thing we have to a rule-ending ruby right now is my personal favorite item. I am a big fan of cosmic horror and that genre in general.
So
and so my favorite item is Effigy of an Elder God. Basically, I can read you the rules for it real quick, because it's not like this is behind a wall right now. This is free to access for everybody.
Yes, on drive-through, correct? Drive-through RPG?
Yes, on drive-through. It is free, and even in its final iteration, it's going to be just pay what you want. Like I said, I wanted to make this as accessible as possible. I want as many people as possible to be able to wield this effigy of an elder god.
Yes,
I mean, what's so wrong with that?
No, I think that's exactly it. Yes, so, just engage with the cosmic horror. And there will be a link in the description of this episode for everyone to go check out this game on drive-through so that you can get it yourself and that you can check it out and see how awesome it is.
Yes, thank you. So, Effigy of an Elder God. While holding this effigy, you can use an action to summon a bolt of, and I quote, acid lightning to strike one enemy in mid-range. This attack uses a D8. If the attack hits, the enemy loses 2 health. If the attack misses, the bolt hits you, and you receive the wound Indoctrinated. So wounds are sort of like status effects. They don't necessarily do damage, but they will provide drawbacks, like you can't move or stuff like that. And this Indoctrinated wound is you cannot willingly let go of the effigy, and you must use this effigy as your action for the next 3 turns. So essentially you go insane temporarily and you just shoot acid lightning everywhere. And acid lightning could be interpreted however you want. It's not a thing that exists, but it evokes a certain crazy image in my mind, and I find it does the same for other people, so we just kept it in.
Yeah, no, that's insane. I love that so much. And again, it's so cool that it has the drawback, because I can just imagine now, someone, having it hit them and it being a whole thing of even the party maybe trying to stop them from continuing to shoot it off. And there's so many scenarios that could come from that. That's so good.
Yeah, it's a really fun piece of item. Really fun thing to have, and you can get it at level 1 because I want the chaos to happen.
Yeah.
Another a very, very surprisingly common item to grab for level 1 characters is a crowbar.
Oh, of course. Simple crowbar.
And I didn't expect everybody to go for the crowbar, but I feel like most of the games I play, I look at their inventory and I go you have a crowbar, you have a crowbar, you have a crowbar. You didn't get a crowbar. Are you sure? Oh, you are getting a crowbar now? I shouldn't have brought it up.
Well, I'm so curious why. What do they do? What do they do with them?
It's real simple. If you use a crowbar to open a door or container, the check to open may use a D8. And doors and containers are notorious in D&D, and I assume in other games, for being the true big bad that stops the party in their tracks.
Whether it be just messing around trying to open it, or it actually, being impossible to open.
I've done that to players too. It's fun.
And this just means, a D8 is still decently high. It's not as high as a 10 and 12, but it's better. And so, a good chance to open the door. I think that's understandable. That's valid. I get it. Oh my gosh, that's so funny though that every single person takes it.
They really do. I'm not even kidding. So that is how character creation works, and that in the time that we took to describe what it is, and our meandering path through examples of things you could take, you probably could have made a character in that time, really easily. And I think the same is going to be true with leveling up. So when you level up, this is a big change that I made recently, but it used to be when you level up, you get a point of health, and you get you get points to spend in talents and powers. So each talent and power has different ranks. And at level 1, you can only have up to rank 1 in anything. At level 3, you can only have up to rank 3 in anything, etc. And so you get these points to spend in them, and you can pick new ones. You can level up what you already have to give you additional related bonuses. Like, you're good at swinging your sword, but now you're better at swinging your sword.
Yeah. It gives me like skill tree from like video games and stuff like that. Like,
a little bit. And so that's usually what takes the most time, is decision paralysis and where you're going to spend your rank points. But the big change we made is, it used to be that you had a static amount of effort, and that didn't change no matter what level you were. Quickly, we realized that wasn't very popular. People wanted to get more effort, be able to do more things more often. So we decided that you can choose whether to gain, when you level up, you get either 1 more point of health or 1 more point of effort. So in the end, you can build either a tank or a glass cannon, totally up to you. And it's very easy to do either. You could go all the way up to the highest level the game allows, which is for now level 10. You could have 12 effort. You could just pile bonuses onto your own roll. Spend all your effort, roll 4 dice, almost certainly get a crit. And you still only have 2 health. Like, if someone farts on you, you're gonna die.
Oh my gosh, that's so good though. But I love that, there's that level of customability though. And I think that's really great. And I am curious of something. So you mentioned how people gain effort when they fail rolls. Is the number of effort you have, aka like as you level up and put a point in it, is that like a max, so you can't go higher than that amount of effort? Or can you go higher than that as you gain effort through failed rolls?
That is the maximum. So the one problem that we're trying to find a way to encourage players to use their effort more often. And the way we do that is, if you have all of your effort and you fail checks, you just fail checks. There's no benefit to that.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, because then, like, why not use the effort? Because if you're gonna fail anyway,
right, you're gonna get it back real quick.
Yeah, it happens all the time. It's very fun failing in games. It happens a lot.
Yes, it is.
So no, I think that's good to know, because I was questioning that when I was reading through the PDF. I'm like, okay, is this like a max thing, or can you go over? Is it something you just stack and resets at some point? Cool. And so, as you spend your effort towards your talents and things like that. No, I like that. That's fun. Very cool.
And I just wrote down a note in my own document to make that more obvious, because this is still in development.
Yes.
And I love, I dread the day when I will no longer be able to make these changes as I talk to people about this game.
Oh yeah, because then it's like, I can't touch it anymore. It's out.
Exactly, it's done. I can't modify it now.
I'm sure every game designer has that. Like, I can't imagine people complaining about, this rule doesn't make sense. I did this instead. It's like, oh, well, that's actually a good point. Shit. I can't do anything now.
Or God's forbid, like a spelling error or a grammar error inside the document, and you're like, oh, now I look like an idiot.
I tried so hard to avoid it.
I'm gonna copy edit this thing like 10 times. It's gonna take years.
And that's what editors are also for.
Yes.
Like, other people, please look at
is...
this and check if it's okay.
I got a portion of the Kickstarter budget dedicated to that. But even if the Kickstarter doesn't succeed, if I do something wrong in budgeting, or I don't market it enough, and not enough people learn about Sagas, I'm still going to go through with finishing up the game. It's just not going to be as clean and pretty as I would have liked it to be.
Oh yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's also good to hear. Because Kickstarters aren't a for sure, you can actually get
Yeah,
something funded.
exactly.
So
All or
having a
nothing.
plan after that is fantastic. And I am curious, for the Kickstarter, are you planning on doing like PDFs and physical books, or are you just going like digital?
This is my first Kickstarter, so I don't, and I've heard many, many, many nightmare stories about other people that have run Kickstarters with, physical bonuses, rewards, that they have to then send out to all the people that bought those with the Kickstarter funds, and the fulfillment for that just takes forever and takes so much effort and is not. It has absolutely nothing to do with what we love, and that's game design. Like those skills do not come into play when you're trying to send the same book to 500 people. So it'll be just the digital stuff in the Kickstarter, but the final iteration is going to be on DriveThruRPG. So once that is out, people will be able to purchase a print-on-demand copy.
I think that's a fantastic plan, honestly, because I have seen quite a few nightmare Kickstarters with physical things. I'm just
You
thinking
don't
of
want
one right now that
another
makes me in
barge
pain.
to get stuck in the canal again.
Yeah,
Something like that happens.
Yeah, it's tricky, and I think that's always what pushes things back, is when you do have to have that physical element. Like, okay, we needed to do some changings because of the printer, or something went wrong with the printing, or there's shipping delays, stuff like that. Doesn't mean like it's bad, and as long as there's open communication, at least for me, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But as like a first Kickstarter, avoiding it is very smart.
I want to learn how to Kickstarter before I learn how to do difficult Kickstarter.
Exactly. Yeah, so full digital, I think I know people also have their preferences. I mean, I love having physical versions of books, which is why the drive-through
I
print
do
on demand,
too.
love it. But like, as long as you have a digital version, I mean, I'll still read through books digitally. If that's the only option that I have with them, I'll do that, no problem. And I am curious of how long this book is going to be, whether or not would it be feasible for people to even be able to print it out, stuff like that.
Oh yeah. So that is one of the big selling points, not necessarily being able to print it out on yourself, which you totally can do. But even the document that I'm looking at now, which has my notes on it and all the art and the layout and everything, in like the layout that I've done, it is only 36 pages. That's it.
That's like nothing compared to like when you
Yeah,
crack open a
it's
D&D book and it's like
super thin.
300.
Exactly. So that was another big thing that I wanted going into this game, is that if we keep it short, it will, one, be faster to develop, and that absolutely has been true, even though we've been doing it for 10 months now. But it being only still under 40 pages makes it super easy to consume. And if you really want more content, there is build your own guidelines in there.
Oh, perfect. Which I am actually a bit curious about. That is like these, under 40 pages. Does this include like, obviously the basic rules, and then there's the whole thing with character creation? Is there a proper like GM section in this game?
Right now, there is not. I am planning on doing a supplement that is going to be partially for the sagas, and partially just my advice from experience that I've done. Just like I introduced myself, I run the OKSDM YouTube channel, where I make mistakes playing games and running games so you don't have to. I take the lessons that I've learned and I reapply them to my games. And I've been doing this for almost a decade now, like learning by trial and error, trying out new things that I see on the internet, like making players track initiative. I never track my own initiative anymore. That's something that the players can easily do, and it's such a huge load off my brain of being able to know who's going to go when. I even have players track monster health sometimes. They don't know the maximum. As long as they count up, I can just ask sometimes, and when they're getting close, I'll start actually keeping track, and it makes it super easy. Certain storytelling aspects, of how to make the players feel amazing. Like if they've played games with you before, have their old player character show up in their new game. That is a huge hit every single time it happens.
So true.
So like things like this are going to go into this GM book of just like general advice for running tabletop role-playing games. And a portion of it is going to be, this is Saga's specific stuff, like how to run these monsters. One thing we are considering as well is having a supplement that is itself a game master, because this is a system where the players make pretty much all the rolls. Like the monsters just have like static numbers constantly. And so it could very easily be turned into a solo or GM-less TTRPG, which is something I'm very excited to explore once we get this core rule book off the ground.
Yeah, no, that is really interesting. I mean, I could definitely see the solo element of it and how that would actually, work out really well, which I always love games that actually don't have the GM roll a ton. I've already got a million other things that I'm doing, and yes, I love dice and I want to roll them, but also if I can just have you roll something so that you can see if you get attacked or not, that's great. I prefer that. And it keeps also people more engaged in the game too. It's like, oh, you're putting all the pressure on them. But no, I could definitely see it working as a good system to run solo like that. So that's really exciting. And for these supplements that you're planning on doing, are these going to be offered along with the Kickstarter? Is this going to be something that comes with the core book in general, or is this something optional?
They are going to be optional, and they're going to be, available at higher tiers of pledges for the Kickstarter. There's going to be, like I said, 5 total. 3 of them are going to be settings, 2 of them are going to be adventures. All of them I've played in before, obviously. I'm going to be playing in them multiple times, but I'm saving most of that work for actually putting these together and finalizing them for after the Kickstarter, to make sure that that option is still, viable. I had a ton of fun over the last couple of weeks putting together the cover art for these supplements, and I've been learning so much about graphic design, but I'm super, super happy with how pretty they look right now.
Oh man, that's really, really exciting. So, I mean, to potentially share a little bit, if you have any ideas of, do you have any set settings or adventures that you are going to be including that for sure? Or is that something that will be fully decided? You don't want to say anything yet because you don't know until after.
I've pretty much decided what the supplements are going to be. They are just the adventures and settings that I've had the most success with so far in playtesting Sagas. One of them, probably the oldest one, and the one I've done the most often, is one of the adventures called the Garlax Chronicle. And it is a cosmic horror mini adventure, like a couple of sessions. You could level up in the middle of it maybe once. But it is something I originally wrote for Dungeons and Dragons, and I wrote it for an 11th level playthrough, and me and my friends from college ran it a couple times, and this was 5 years ago or something. And they had a great time, and I learned a lot about writing adventures, and I said, okay, this is going to be the first one that I'm going to rewrite and rerun with other people.
Oh, that's so cool.
And that was one of the first big projects I did on my YouTube channel. Is I toned it down to a level 4 D&D adventure instead, and ran it with my fiance and 2 of the first friends that I ever made in the TTRPG content creation space. And it was so much fun to put together, to run. I had a blast terrifying all the players. They had a blast being terrified. and I ran it again recently, also on stream, for a new crew. And this time I used the Saga system, and instead of setting it in like this fantasy realm, we set it in a trailer park, like a modern trailer park. And it worked super well again. So I think that was the first one I decided on. This is going to be the first piece of Saga's extra stuff that I'm going to put together.
I love that so much. And the fact that it's like also personal to you. It's like we get to actually like see like man, I love that about indie games, especially in indie game designers, that they can actually include things that are personal like that to them into these games that other people that then can like witness. Like that sounds really really fun. Ooh.
It's really cool to see stuff in in other like indie developers, like you said, of like this idea, like this little piece of it is from something else that I did like 10 years before this game even started being written. And it finally gets to see public light in this game that I've created. And Garlax Chronicle very much falls into that category.
I'm just curious of the experience of running it through D&D versus Sagas.
I think it was more fun in Sagas, to be honest, because there was that like setting it in a trailer park just felt better instead of setting it in like a town that's far away from everything, in, like vaguely. But having it, it was much easier to like describe things because I could use more real world experience to say what's going on, and the players could more easily picture the things that are going around them. And I felt like I just had more freedom with being able to tell the story inside that system than I did in D&D.
It just connected better. I love that. Oh, that just, again, that kind of got me because like this is what I love about expanding off into the world of TTRPGs and into these different systems and games that are designed for, you know, either when it comes to some of these genre agnostic systems, or even something hyper specific like Masks, a new generation, literally just being about playing teenage superheroes trying to find where they basically belong in the world. Like you can play all of these different things and you can find something that tells these stories that you really want to play the way that you want to play them. You know, even though again, you could have done kind of that trailer park scenario in D&D, technically you might have didn't even like consider it. And that wasn't something you did because of even just the setting of that game. You know?
Yeah. I mean, you don't think magic when you think trailer park.
Yeah. And so it's just, I love it.
On that note, there is something that I did want to talk about. One of my favorite recent additions to the core rulebook is it's in the What is Sagas section. You know, describing exactly what the game is, you know, what is a TTRPG, what makes Sagas different, doing all that stuff. But one of them is like, let's see, the title of it is Sagas Can Be Played in Any Genre. And inside there's a table of different describers of worlds and genres and settings that you can play in. And what you do is you roll 3. It's the only time in Sagas where you get to use a D20 so far. But there are 20 options here. So if you roll 3 D20, you will come up with a setting. So do you have dice handy by chance?
I can grab one. Okay, I am actually very excited about this. And before we do it, when I was looking at this playtest earlier, I was on a call with my partner, and when I saw this, I was looking at it, I'm like, this is really fun. And I just was really amused by the idea of cyberpunk Western. And so that just made me really happy, and I wanted to share that because that just sounded so fun.
There's some wilder combinations in here. All right, go ahead. Roll me 3d20.
All right. We got an 18. Oh goodness.
All right.
A 8.
Okay.
And that's another 18. Give me a moment. And a 12.
And a 12. So we're looking at a historical cyberpunk intrigue game. So my first thought for this is time travel. You're from a cyberpunk future. You show up in London mid-Victorian era, and you have to find out who else came back with you and stop, it could be stop the end of the world, stop the crown from being stolen, something along those lines.
I love that. That's so good. Yeah, no, this was just as amazing as I thought it would be. Oh man, and especially because there's also different ways that you could interpret it too. And like, again, I love that there's also the list of like, here's more so actual like settings, and here are more so genres too. It kind of does give you that mix that you can mix and match. Like if you get I'm trying to think of a good one just from looking at the list. Like horror doesn't give you too much. Like horror is pretty general. But then when you do like cyberpunk horror, that gives you something more than yeah, this is just a horror
game. Your cybernetics are starting to eat you instead.
Yeah, it's starting to corrupt. Like there's some or even like a some sort of robotic monster even that's like completely unstoppable.
And you said your first roll was 18-8 and then another 18.
Yeah, it was 18-8 and another 18.
So if you there is an instruction at the top that says if you roll doubles or triples, re-roll or lean into it. So we could do historical intrigue. So you're all the way back in the Stone Age, and you have to make sure that the power of your clan stays stable.
This gives some real Doctor Who shenanigans.
Yeah,
I am here for it.
That's one of the settings that has been most played so far in Sagas is Doctor Who going to all the different worlds, fighting Cybermen and Daleks and all that stuff.
Eat it. Like, even though like I look at Doctor Who and it's like, yeah, that's a Monster of the Week show. It's like, no, there's a level of goofiness that you need something like a system, like a generic system to run. Because my gosh, yeah, no, that's like literally you could make any of this into a Doctor Who episode. Oh, this is fantastic. Yep, I know what really I want to do now.
Tell me what's on your mind.
Well, I've been the biggest thing is just like I've been watching a lot of Doctor Who, and I've been running a lot of games for my friends, and so my immediate thought is like, especially since this is a playtest, I now kind of want to run a few games using kind of that idea of Doctor Who, different people, aliens, or maybe, we'll see what kind of characters they want to play, traveling throughout, worlds, and, we'll see exactly what happens, because maybe it's they kick some robot butt, maybe it's they solve a mystery, maybe it's a really dramatic, like, Victorian drama type thing. Like there are so many options. Like that just like feels like the perfect scenario for this game. Like just something where you have a consistent cast of characters that just switch up the settings consistently.
That's one of my favorite like pitches that I've heard of like doing the same characters in different worlds. And there's even a bit about that in the What is Sagas page at the bottom is mixing worlds. So you can like, you can do your Doctor Who meets Pokemon or whatever, like just the wildest combinations. Like these Doctor Who characters get transported into the Pokemon universe. One of the playtests we did live was really, really fun because it was one of the first times I got to actually play in Sagas live. And what we did was I started out in like this sci-fi Western setting.
Fun.
Like a fantasy sci-fi Western setting. So
okay.
The sheriff was a snake, and the bad guy had like some sort of portal magic science stuff going on. But the plan, the pitch for the whole game was rotating settings and rotating game masters. So the session that I played ended with the entire party getting sucked into a portal, and then we cut black screen.
Oh, I love
Wait
it.
a week, come back the next week. Someone new is in the GM chair, and they're putting the players emerge from the portal into this different world.
Yes.
And we got to reflavor their abilities to match the world. So like your fire mage is going to have fire mage goes to a cyberpunk world. Now they have normal hands, but there's no magic here. So they can morph their arms into flamethrowers. And reading it, like, it's really, really fun to take the characters that you love and have been playing for a while and reflavor them into a new setting and a new genre.
Oh man, I really want to play this. Oh man,
Me too. I want to just sit down and play my own game right now.
I'm feeling really in the mood for that.
Yeah.
I think that's also the cool thing about game design, at least in my mind, is the fact that like you come at it with you want to create a game that you're going to have fun playing. So like of course you want to sit down and play, and of course you want to enjoy it and play test it and just do all the things, because this is a game that you want to play. You are designing it in a way that makes you excited. Like that's just the coolest part. And why probably so many
and
people
like at
do
the end
design
of
their own
this, I'm going to have exactly. And at the end, I'm going to have my favorite game that has never existed before, and I'm the first person to, experience it in full and understand everything. It just makes me so excited,
Well, oh my gosh, no, absolutely. And we're probably getting to the end here, unfortunately, because this has been a
Aw.
fantastic conversation.
Yes,
It
it
could
has.
go on for very long.
Mhm.
No, but this seriously has been amazing. And I do want to, before we, there's probably one more thing that I want to ask, but I'm going to save that for the very end. Is there anything about sagas that we haven't talked about that you want to mention before we start to close up here?
Let's see. What
This is
are
your
all
final
my
moment.
selling points? Where's my elevator pitch? I think the most important thing to impart upon you, dear listener, about sagas is that this is free. Like, the core rulebook is going to be so accessible. You can just go download it, and even if you don't end up playing it, you can just, have your copy. And if you do feel like playing it, there are going to be options for what setting you can run it in. There's going to be all sorts of worlds that you can explore. I just really hope that you get a chance to open up that door like I have, and really open up into the possibilities of where not only your new characters, but even like the characters that you've already built and what they can experience in a different setting.
Yes. I especially love that, the characters that you have built in a different setting, how, because that's another thing I've always wanted to do, is create a character in like multiple different games. But like this feels like a really fun one. Like any system neutral, or sorry, setting neutral TTRPG I always find to be really fascinating. But this one I'm again very, very excited for, especially with combined with the idea of like the different worlds. I love it. But no, that's
one of
so
the biggest most common like reactions people have to reading through like character creation while like I'm reading through with them is like, oh, I could just remake my old character inside this system in like 2 minutes. And I've had plenty of people that just actually did that for the game we were playing.
Might as well.
Yep.
Like it's amazing, and I love that can work, because that can be so difficult to do in other systems, especially ones that are so specific or specialized. And while again, like everything has its own advantages and disadvantages, I just think like if you really like that idea of playing like that same character, those same character tropes, and just like seeing how they can change between different games and like different choices, even with character creation. I think this would be a really good game for you to play, because I know people really like that, and ooh, that would be very fun. No, like seriously, thank you so much for talking with me. Like
No, thank you. This has been a blast. I mean, I got to talk about the thing I've been working on, the thing I've been obsessed with for months. Of course I'm going to have a good time, but I think this is like, I've done other interviews before, but I think this was definitely one of the most fun ones that I've been able to do. I feel like I feel like we connected. I definitely want to do more stuff with you in the past, so we'll stay in touch.
Ooh, yes, no, I would be very down for that. That would be fantastic. Just thank you about what you said, about this being super fun, because that just is always my goal. And, I think, again, like I said, unfortunately enough, I think we do have to end here, since getting to about an hour and a half, almost 40 minutes somehow. The final question that I love asking all people, just because I like hearing their answers, and even though I may know the answer to this just with what you said earlier, what makes you the most excited about Saga?
I think the thing I'm most excited about is the actual process of creating this game. I've learned so much already, and I learn so much more whenever I like work on a different aspect of it. So, cover design, graphic design, I've been learning that. I've been learning publishing, even like learning how to license this game was fun to do because of like the purpose behind it. So this, like, I feel like I've really found my calling, because I've been doing this for 10 months and burnout is nowhere in sight.
Oh man, that's where it's impressive. If you can do something for 10 months and not get tired of it, fuck yeah. No, that's amazing. Oh. And now I'm like so curious as well, because you mentioned even doing some like smaller games or some smaller things before. Sagas may not be the only thing that you do, and potentially what you could do past that. And if you even do anything past that, that's really exciting. Oh man.
Oh, I've got plans. Some of them are just like shadowy, vague ideas. Some of them are more solid, but all of them are there. There's going to be stuff. I can promise you stuff.
Yay, stuff. Whether or not it haunts you in the corners of the room in the shadows and, makes your life chaotic. It's all stuff. No, but like seriously, once again, thank you so much for coming on. I think this is the end here. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you about Sagas. Please, everyone who has listened to this episode, and if you really enjoyed what you heard about Sagas, check out the link in the description of this episode to go to the drive-thru page and get Sagas for yourself. I will also include the link to the Kickstarter when it is up in the description here too, which is going to be January 2024, which is a terrible thing to say. Oh god.
It's a real year. It's approaching.
Yeah, no, it's upsetting, but yeah, all of that is going to be in the description, along with all of Dennis's social medias and places that you can find him. But for one last time here, as we wrap up, Dennis, can you please go over all of your socials and all of the things that you'd like to promote before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I've been promoting Sagas this whole time, and like, there's not much else that I'm working on. So, I run the Okayest DM YouTube channel, where I make mistakes running games, so you don't have to. I have too many social media sites, so you can find all of that and all of the extra Sagas links. We've got. There's just so many links. You can find them at linktree/okayestdm, all one word. That's linktr.ee/okayestdm. We've got, the Kickstarter link in there. We've got the newsletter link in there, which I send out a weekly update on the progress of Sagas, along with a new phone or desktop wallpaper every week for free. So if you go over to that link tree, you'll find all my stuff.
Perfect. And that will absolutely be in the description of this episode. So whether you type it or get it through there, just go check out Dennis's stuff because this all sounds amazing. And to also hear some of these really cool games, that's cool. But yeah, I think this is it then. All of those links will be in the description of the episode. Thank you so much, Dennis, for coming on. And thank you everyone so much for listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Craig, where do you live?